Welcome to Lucore Automotive. In today's Tales from the Shop, in Columbus, Ohio, you got a lot of options for mechanics. Lucore Automotive, we're a little bit different. From old school muscle cars to modern tuner cars, imports, domestics, it pretty much doesn't matter, we work on them all. Big lifted Jeeps, yeah, we do those too. Diesel trucks, yep, we do that as well. We typically tend to stay away from the hot rod market, not really. So anyway, what we wanted to do here is we wanted to cut together a look back at 2018 and some of the cool rides we've had a hand in. You're going to see an IS300 from Kevin Mounts and a badass Chevelle from Joe Coben. Remember, click subscribe, click like, leave us some comments. Alright, so welcome to Lucore Automotive. This is Kevin Mounts, and he is the owner of the IS300 you guys have seen. We want to give you guys a little bit of a background peek into each of these cars individually so you guys can kind of see what led up to those vehicles and what made them the vehicles they are today. Kevin and I actually met as many great relationships through Craigslist. He brought us a Mark III Supra that had some issues, and the relationship has progressed into now building his IS300. So as you've seen in the intro clip, it's a pretty stout little vehicle and it makes a different noise than it was supposed to make originally. Yes. One of the things I love about that car is we kind of built a dream of making it a kind of a street fighter, not a purpose-built dragster, not a corner carver, but generally all around.
Yeah, the idea behind building the car was something that has enough power to get up and hang with anything out there, can take it to the track, have fun with it, but I can technically drive the car daily if I truly wanted to. What I kind of did is I brought Austin and the team here at Lucor a car. I said, these are my goals. This is what I want you to do. How do we make it work? And from there, we went step by step, figured out what parts to put on it, what parts would work best, how do we make it work, why doesn't this work, why does this work, and they pretty much took all of my hopes and dreams and crammed it into a car and made it happen.
Now, one of the best parts about that car, and I have said this over and over again, this is probably one of my favorite cars I've ever been involved in building wise or even driving wise, is the fact that we left everything there. It's not a stripped out race car. It's not a your air conditioning doesn't work car. It's not like literally everything still works.
Yeah, most cars that have this kind of power and this capability race car wise will cost you well above $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. And I took an 02 IS300 with a simple inline six, and I did just that. I have power seats, heated seats, AC, heat, all of it. It's all there, radio, everything works. So you really don't realize you are driving a full-fledged race car until you get on it and realize that you were outrunning almost anything out there on the street.
When Kevin and I were originally talking, if you're getting into the build process, one of the things you always have to figure out is what is the project dream. Figure it out, set a goal, and then don't mess with it. When you start changing goals and you start changing builds, that's when things start snowballing. Your costs go nuts, your timetable goes out the window, and you end up with an absolute nightmare. We had a goal in mind of 500 wheel horsepower, and we hit that essentially without having to do anything completely crazy with this car and leave plenty still left on the table. We're not going to go into a whole lot of specifics on this video. We will actually do in the springtime a one-on-one video with Kevin and his car, so you guys can get a little bit more of a deep dive on it. But essentially speaking, we made 500 wheel horsepower on a low boost setting. on a stock rev limiter with stock cams. So we didn't do anything totally nuts. It just kind of goes to telling you how well built that 2J platform is for those of you who have never seen a 2J. But this is a GE-T, not a GTE.
One of the reasons why we went with the GET instead of the GTE is that the differences are not enough for what our horsepower goals were to warrant buying a completely new motor and building that. Essentially, we built a GTE, but even better than in the factory form. So that's why we opted to stick with what we had. We saved time. It was an easy way to save money versus buying a whole new motor. So that's why we opted to go with that. I know the common thing out there is to swap in a twin turbo motor out of an Aristo or something like that, but we wanted to stick to the original, stick to as much of how the car came and go off of that platform. So that GET platform instead of the GTE platform.
So if you like that car, make sure you give him a follow on Instagram and social media. It's at BoostedLexi. And of course us, we're at LucoreRacing. All right, so beside Kevin here, we have Joe Coben. He is the driver of the Chevelle, which you saw in the intro video. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring the two of them together was they both had dreams on these vehicles, and they're both completely streetable vehicles. Most people who go crazy on a build something that's an absolute nightmare to drive on the street. Joe Coben's actually our engine builder over at Performance Research. We've seen him in some of our other videos. This car he purposely built with his father in mind. And this is Izzy Coben, his adorable little dog, with his father in mind. And the idea with this car was build something that was angry and terrible, but completely streetable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I built it for him. And yeah, definitely with him in mind, a little bit of me in mind as well.
Sure.
He didn't need all the horsepower that we gave it, but I wanted to give it to him anyway. But yeah, so it's definitely, the idea was a car that you can put pump gas in, you can hop in it and drive it every day if you want. At low speed, sitting in traffic, it's not going to shake you to death. And when you put your foot down, it plants you to the seat and puts a permanent smile on your face. So that was the idea, and what we ended up with was, it's a heavy car. It weighs exactly 3,800 pounds. We weighed it at COSI. It made just under 650 horsepower to the flywheel on our engine dyno. We haven't had a chance to dyno it on chassis dyno yet, but it definitely scoots, especially for how heavy it is. And it's very mild mannered. And at 9.6 to 1 compression, it'll run our 93 octane all day long.
The neat thing for me, especially with pairing these two cars up, is you couldn't get too much more diametrically opposed vehicles. Like
Sure.
You have an inline six with a hair dryer on it, and you have a nasty. What's the cubic inch on that thing?
567 inches is what it's.
567 cubic inch big block Chevy. You can't really tie anything to those two cars together, but they're both in the range at power to weight ratio, and they're both completely streetable vehicles.
Sure, and you have the like you said, the fuel injected, tricky, turbocharged, import, lighter weight, makes tons of power, and then you have the carbureted, just big gigantic V8 that makes a ridiculous amount of torque. I mean, they're on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and you got the smaller, lighter, sportier Lexus. And then you got the big, heavy, full-size Chevelle. So,
I think the cool thing about it is they provide two completely different driving styles, two completely different feels when driving it, but essentially they are built to do the same thing and they do nothing but put a smile on your face.
Oh, absolutely. And I've driven both of these cars, and I will say that they are both fantastically fun cars to drive. I think that's something that people who have never built something like this and enjoyed something like this, they don't really understand
the
The level.
pleasure that you get
Yeah.
just driving.
You can get from point A to point B at anything.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy the drive, it makes it a whole lot more fun. So these two cars have never been lined up against each other. They've never been driven in anger against each other. This now being 2019, we filmed all of this in 2018, but it's been a little bit busy, so we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with both these guys at the same time. So in 2019, you will probably see these two go down the track side by side.
Oh.
Don't you agree, Izzy?
I think she agrees. That's a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, the power to weight ratio is about the same.
Yeah.
It's about the same on both of these cars.
Power bands are completely different. Short setups are completely different.
Yeah.
But
both cars have a very usable power band and
Right.
are extremely streetable. They're just the best of what you could ask from either side of the spectrum.
right. Now, again, we're not going to go into real specifics on as far as what's in that Chevelle. That we will save for a later on episode and deep dive into that car specifically. So if you like what you've seen, Joe Coben is with Performance Research Inc. in Westerville. Well, I guess you're Columbus, off of Westerville.
Yeah, technically Columbus off Westerville Road.
Follow them at Performance Research. Of course, we are at LucoreRacing. And hopefully you liked the video. If you enjoyed this, give us a like, drop us a comment. Remember to hit that subscribe button. And we got a whole bunch more coming for you in 2019.